My brother said, "Your family." Then left me $15K in debt and blocked my number while posting yacht photos from Spain. I took him to court, exposed everything, and watched the judge finally hold him accountable, while my family called the villain. It started like most bad decisions with a phone call that came too late at night. "Hey, can I ask you something real quick?" my brother said, casual as ever. He always had this tone like he was calling from a sunny porch with a cold beer, even when he was neck-deep in chaos. "I just need a small favor." I already knew the answer before he said the words. I was going to say yes, because that's what I did. I was the younger sibling, the fixer, the one who made sure things didn't fall apart. He needed a co-signer for a car loan, just for a few months, he promised, just until his new job picked up. "Your family," he said, like that sealed it. Like being family meant I had to hand over my credit score like a blood sacrifice. Hesitated. I had just gotten my credit into the 700s. I was on track to get my own place, finally move out of the apartment with paper-thin walls, and a neighbor who thought 2 a.m. was a great time for karaoke. But my brother made it sound easy. "No risk, just paperwork." "I got you," he said. "This is just temporary." The loan was approved 2 days later. He drove off in a black Dodge Charger with tinted windows and rims that looked like they cost more than my rent. He hugged me like I was his savior, and for the first few months, things were quiet. Too quiet. I didn't ask questions. He said the payments were being made. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that this time was different, that he was really turning things around. He sent me pictures from the driver's seat, captions like, "Making moves," and "Blessed." I didn't realize that I just signed away my peace of mind. The first red flag was a call from the loan company. Missed payment. Just one, they said. Probably a mix-up. My brother brushed it off. He was between jobs again, waiting on a freelance check. "No worries," he said. "I'll catch up next week." Next week came and went. Then another missed payment. Then two, I started getting mail, final notices. My credit score took a nosedive. I called him, texted, emailed. He answered once, "Chill, I'm handling it." I stopped sleeping through the night. I stopped opening my mailbox. I stopped trusting the sound of my phone vibrating. I went from being his co-signer to being his collateral damage. 3 years later, the car was repossessed, and I was still paying for it. In every way, financially, emotionally, spiritually. That was the moment I realized the only temporary thing about that favor was my sanity. And the worst part? He still didn't think he'd done anything wrong. It wasn't just the repo. It was the way I found out. I was coming home from work, exhausted, carrying groceries in one arm and balancing my laptop bag in the other, when I noticed the envelope on my doorstep. Certified mail, bank letterhead. I dropped the eggs. I didn't even make it to the kitchen. I sat down on the floor, shoes still on, and opened the letter like it might bite me. Notice of deficiency balance, 14,893.7, due immediately. You, as co-signer, are liable for the unpaid amount. My ears were ringing. I read it again. Then again. The room started to spin. I called him, straight to voicemail. I called again, then texted, "Hey, I just got a letter from the bank. The car, what happened?" No answer. I opened Instagram. He'd posted 5 hours ago, him on a yacht, drink in hand, sunglasses on, captioned, "Work hard, play harder." Location tag, Ibiza, Spain. I stared at the screen, heart pounding like a war drum. I zoomed in on the reflection in his shades. The Mediterranean Sea sparkled behind him. He was partying. I was panicking. He didn't lose the car because he couldn't pay. He lost it because he wouldn't pay. I called again. This time he picked up. "Yo, I'm kinda in the middle of something, what's up?" My voice cracked. "The car. It got repossessed. I got a bill. $14,000, Jake. I don't have that kind of money." He laughed. "Relax. That's just a scare tactic. They always send those letters. It'll work itself out." "No, it won't. This isn't monopoly money. My credit is destroyed. I got denied for an apartment yesterday. They said I'm a risk. He sighed. It's the economy, man. Everyone's struggling. You're in Ibiza. There was a pause. Then, don't do this. Don't turn this into some drama. You know I've been dealing with a lot. I almost dropped the phone. I've been dealing with a lot, Jake. I co-signed for you. You promised you'd pay. You said it was temporary. And it was. I made payments for a while. But stuff happened. For a while? Jake, you haven't paid in over a year. You didn't even tell me it was getting repossessed. He was quiet. I could hear the bass of a distant club in the background. Then, he said it. Look, I'll figure something out, okay? But don't be dramatic. You're family. Family doesn't sue each other. Something inside me snapped. Not all at once. It was slow. Like an old bridge giving out under too much weight. Wood splintering. Steel twisting. Foundations crumbling. That night I didn't sleep. Instead, I pulled out every folder I had. Bank statements, email chains, old screenshots. I found the original loan paperwork. Then I found something else. A notarized letter Jake had signed, promising he would be solely responsible for the car loan and would reimburse me for any charges or damages if things went wrong. He forgot about that. I didn't. I started digging, checked every transaction. I made a spreadsheet, month by month, missed payments, late fees, interest accrued. I built a timeline, calls, texts, when I reached out, when he ignored me. I wasn't just mad anymore. I was building a case. Then I did something I never thought I'd do. I told my parents. At first, they were quiet. Then my dad said, "You know how your brother is." Yes, I did. That's exactly the problem. Mom looked heartbroken. Not for me, for him. He's always had a tough time with responsibility, she said gently, like we were talking about a child who broke a vase, not a man who financially ruined his sibling. I might sue him, I said. They froze. You'd sue your own brother? Dad asked. That's cold. I met his eyes. So was he family when he stole from me? He didn't have an answer for that. Over the next week, the calls started. Uncles, aunts, cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. Can't you two just work it out? Don't bring lawyers into this. That's not what family does. But no one offered to help pay the bill. No one offered to fix my credit. No one offered to co-sign my next lease. And Jake? He still hadn't apologized. Still hadn't paid a cent. Instead, I saw another photo. Rooftop bar, city skyline, captioned "Back on the Grind." I opened my spreadsheet. I saved a PDF. Then I started filling out a court form. Not out of revenge, out of self-respect. This wasn't just a bad financial decision anymore. It was a theft, a betrayal. And if I didn't draw a line here, I was going to spend the rest of my life cleaning up someone else's mess. This wasn't just about money. It was about not letting someone pretend they hadn't wrecked your life. It was about making sure that when someone says, "Your family," it doesn't mean you're free labor, or free credit, or free silence. I hit print. It was time to turn the favor into a formal case. Filing the lawsuit was supposed to feel like crossing a finish line. Instead, it felt like stepping onto a battlefield. The clerk at the small claims window barely glanced at me as she stamped the paperwork. "He'll be served in 3 to 5 business days," she said. "If he doesn't respond, you can request a default judgment." It sounded so procedural, so sterile. Like I hadn't just handed over a stack of paper that represented my financial trauma, my broken trust, my last 3 years of anxiety in spreadsheet form. I walked out of the courthouse with a receipt in my hand and a lump in my throat. But I wasn't crying. I was calculating. Jake didn't know it yet, but the game had changed. I wasn't the quiet little sibling anymore. I was the one with the facts, the paper trail, the motive, and the will. 3 days later, he was served at his girlfriend's place. That's when the storm hit. First came the call from him. I let it go to voicemail. His message was calm. Too calm. Like someone reading a script for a hostage negotiation. "Hey, got your little surprise in the mail. This is crazy. I mean, you really want to drag this into court? You know what that's gonna do to the family? Let's just talk, all right? I didn't respond. Then came the texts. Jake, this is a mistake, just call me. Jake, seriously, you're gonna regret this. Jake, you're blowing this way out of proportion. Then the group chats lit up. Aunt Mel, you two need to stop this nonsense. Uncle Rob, talk it out. No need for lawyers. Mom, please call your brother. This is tearing me apart. But there was one message that stood out. Cousin Nina. Privately, Nina, I know you're not wrong. Just want you to know I see what he's doing. He owes you more than money. It was the only message that didn't ask me to shut up. It gave me strength. That night, I opened a locked drawer and pulled out my old hard drive. I hadn't touched it in months, but it held years of digital clutter, backups of old phones, saved voicemails, chat logs. I started searching. Every message Jake had ever sent me, even the ones from years ago. I compiled screenshots, downloaded attachments. I organized everything by date, color-coded it. I wasn't just building a case, I was constructing a timeline, a narrative, evidence of a pattern. Late payments weren't new, excuses weren't new. This wasn't a one-time slip. This was a lifestyle. I found an email he sent me 2 weeks after the car was purchased. Yo, I'm gonna be late on this month's payment, but I'll double up next time. Appreciate you covering me if they call. He literally admitted it in writing. Then there was the text. Jake, you're good for it, right? Worst case, they ding your credit but they don't actually collect. Worst case. He treated my financial ruin like a backup plan. The deeper I went, the colder I became. Not angry, just surgical. I filed every piece of evidence like I was preparing for war. Because I was. The only thing missing was a witness. Then I remembered Jake's old roommate, Travis, the guy he used to live with before moving in with his girlfriend. I messaged him, unsure if he'd even respond. He did. Me. Hey, random question. Do you remember anything about Jake's car payments back in 2020? Travis. LOL, yeah. He used to brag about how he never paid and they kept calling. His sister instead. Thought it was hilarious. Me. Would you be willing to say that in a statement? Travis. Honestly? Yeah. He burned me on rent. Screw him. I couldn't believe it. This was real. I had a witness. I had documents. I had motive. I had intent. What I didn't have was support. The next Sunday was family dinner. My parents insisted I come. Put everything aside for one night, Mom said. We're still family. I almost didn't go, but part of me wanted to look him in the eye. I walked in with the summons in my purse. Jake was already there, laughing, holding court like nothing had happened. He saw me and his smile twitched. Hey, look who finally showed up, he said. Glad you're not too busy with your court cases. My mom shushed him. Dad gave him a look, but no one stopped him. Dinner was awkward. Forced conversation. Forks scraping plates, no one mentioning the elephant in the room, though it was wearing a "You're Suing Your Brother" t-shirt and doing the Macarena in the corner. Halfway through, Jake leaned toward me. This is insane, he said under his breath. You really want to throw away blood over a stupid bill? I reached into my purse, pulled out the envelope and slid it across the table. He opened it. His eyes scanned the first page, then the second. Then the notarized letter. You forgot you signed this, I said quietly. But I didn't. He looked up at me, stunned. You're serious? Completely. He shoved the papers back. This is betrayal. I kept my voice calm. No. What you did was betrayal. This is just accountability. He pushed his chair back. You'll regret this. I picked up my fork. Maybe. But at least I'll regret it with a clean credit. Score. He left. Slammed the door so hard a picture frame rattled on the wall. Mom didn't say a word. Dad finally whispered. That was harsh. I looked around the table, at the people who'd watched me suffer, then asked me to suffer quietly. People who loved the idea of family until it came with a price tag. Maybe, I said. But it's time someone in this family learned what a boundary looks like. And that night, for the first time in years, I slept. Dreamless solid. Ready. The court date was set for a Tuesday morning, 9 a.m. sharp. I arrived early, sat in the hallway outside the courtroom with my file folder clutched, like armor, and watched the doors like a hawk. My palms were sweating, but my mind was clear. I had everything: copies, originals, backups, statements, the notarized letter, the texts, the email chains, the witness statement from Travis, signed and dated. I had evidence. What I didn't have was certainty. I didn't know if Jake would show. Part of me hoped he wouldn't. Part of me prayed he would. At 8:56 a.m., he walked in, 20 minutes late to everything in life except this. He was wearing a blazer. The tag was still stitched to the sleeve. He looked like a guy playing the role of a responsible adult in a high school play. He saw me and gave a single nod. No smile, no smirk, just calculation. Game time. The courtroom was small, no jury, just a judge and a clerk. Everything about it felt quieter than it should have. Like a bomb about to go off in a library. Jake tried to take control immediately. Your Honor, I think this is just a big misunderstanding. My sister and I had a verbal agreement and she's twisting it around. I never asked her to be responsible for the full loan. We were supposed to split things. The judge raised an eyebrow. She co-signed the loan. The paperwork shows she was the guarantor. That doesn't imply a split. Jake smiled that politician smile. Yes, but families do things informally, right? We never wrote anything down. I pulled out the notarized letter. The judge took it, read it, and looked back at Jake. This letter explicitly states you would be fully responsible for the loan. It's dated and signed. Notarized. Jake blinked. I don't remember signing that. I do, I said. You had me meet you at a UPS store to get it notarized. You were 30 minutes late. The judge nodded slowly. All right, let's move on. I walked the court through the evidence. Month by month missed payments, repossession documents, the damage done to my credit, and a rejection letter from an apartment complex. Jake rolled his eyes at that. I mean, come on, everyone's credit took a hit during the pandemic. But not everyone co-signed a loan for someone who stopped paying the same year he flew to Ibiza, I said. That one hit. The judge turned to Jake. Can you explain the luxury travel expenses documented in these social media posts? Jake waved a hand. I had points, rewards programs, that's not relevant. The judge raised his eyebrows again. It's relevant if you're claiming financial hardship. Appearances matter when you're avoiding debt. Then came Travis's written statement. Jake lost his cool. Oh, that guy? You're bringing in a statement from my ex-roommate? He's just bitter because I called him out for stealing weed from my stash. The judge cleared his throat loudly. Mr. Brennan, please maintain composure. This isn't social media. This is a court of law. Jake leaned back, seething. I just think it's disgusting, he muttered. That my own sister would drag me into court over this. It's vindictive. It's personal. She's always been a perfectionist. Just can't handle when things don't go her way. I stared at him. Then I said, No, Jake. I just can't handle being used. Silence. The judge asked a few more questions. Total payments missed, dates, fees. I answered calmly, professionally, like it was someone else's life. Like I hadn't cried myself to sleep over this exact spreadsheet. Finally, the judge looked between us. Given the documentation, the notarized letter, the consistent efforts made by the plaintiff to resolve the issue, and the defendant's lack of payments, I'm ruling in favor of the plaintiff. Bang, Jake didn't move. I heard it, but I had to hear it again in my head to believe it. I'm ordering the defendant to pay $14,193.27 in damages, plus court costs. A payment schedule will be arranged. Just like that, it was over. The judge stood and exited. Jake turned to me slowly. You really did it. I really did. You'll regret this, he said again. Softer this time. Almost sad, but I wasn't sad. I regret trusting you, I said. But not this. He stormed out without another word. I stayed behind, just sat there for a moment, letting the moment sink in. I thought I'd feel triumphant. I didn't. Felt still, like someone who'd just set down a burden they'd carried too long to even remember how it started. Outside the courtroom, my phone buzzed. Mom. Did it have to go this far? I didn't reply. Another message came in. Nina. Proud of you? I smiled. Just a little. Not because I won, but because I stopped letting someone else decide what I was worth. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about the silence I refused to live in. And for the first time in a long time, I walked away. Not broken, not bitter, but whole. Winning felt like nothing I expected. No music swelled. No high fives, no celebratory dance in the parking lot. Just me and my file folder, walking out of the courthouse under a gray sky. I didn't even notice it had started to rain until a drop landed on the envelope in my hand, smudging the ink. Didn't care. The ink had already dried in court. Jake owed me money and the record to prove it. But no judge in the world could force him to feel the weight of what he did. My phone rang. It was Mom again. I didn't answer. Then came the voicemails. I let them pile up. After the fifth, I finally played one on speaker while sitting in my car. Sweetheart, I just think there's a better way. Your brother's been through a lot. This is going to tear the family apart. I'm begging you. Be the bigger person. Be the bigger person. That phrase again. They never said that when he left me holding the bill. Or when I couldn't get approved for housing. Or when I cried quietly on the bathroom floor after another job turned me down because my credit score was a red flag. But now that I had taken action, now it was too much. Now I was the problem. I went home, changed out of my courthouse clothes, and opened my laptop. I pulled up my bank app. No surprise. Nothing had hit my account yet. Jake had 30 days to make the first payment. Somehow I doubted he would, but something was different. I wasn't waiting for his apology anymore, or his money, or his guilt. I was done handing him the keys to my peace. Still, the fallout spread fast. Aunt Mel uninvited me from Thanksgiving. Said it was best for the vibe. My uncle texted me a Bible verse about forgiveness. Even my dad, usually the quiet one, told me I needed to think about the long-term consequences of dividing the family. What they didn't understand was the division had already happened. Jake had drawn that line years ago when he chose ego over responsibility. I just finally stopped pretending it wasn't there. But not everyone was silent. Cousin Nina called the next night. I answered, expecting more guilt. Instead, she sighed and said, "I'm sorry." I blinked. For what? For not saying something sooner. I knew what he was doing. I saw it, but I didn't want to be in the middle. I get it, I said. No one wants to choose sides. No, she said. But sometimes not choosing is choosing. That stuck with me. The next day, a strange number called me. I almost declined it, but something told me to pick up. It was Jake's girlfriend. "I'm not trying to get in the middle," she said quickly. "But I thought you should know he's telling people you tricked him, said you forged the document." I felt the blood drain from my face. He's... What? He's mad. Real mad. Says you set him up. He showed your court docs to his buddies at the bar last night and said you were obsessed with ruining his life. I closed my eyes, counted to 5. Then I opened my email and attached the notarized document. I sent it to my lawyer with a short subject line. Defamation question. Urgent. The response came fast. If Jake publicly claimed I forged a document that was legally verified, he wasn't just lying. He was opening a new door. I wasn't sure I wanted to walk through it. But then I remembered the damage. The rent rejections. The fear. The nights spent refreshing my credit report. The moments I stayed quiet just to keep the peace. I wasn't doing that anymore. A few days later, I got a certified envelope in the mail, this time addressed from him. Inside was a check. Partial payment. $3,000. On the memo line, he'd written, "So you can shut up now." My hands trembled. I thought about ripping it in half. Instead, I deposited it. Then I emailed a copy to the court and confirmed the installment. That money wasn't forgiveness. It was restitution. The world didn't explode. No one called to congratulate me. No dramatic music played. But that night, I slept 8 hours without waking up once. Later that week, I ran into my dad at the grocery store. He didn't see me at first, just stood in front of the cereal aisle comparing boxes like nothing had changed. I almost turned and walked away, but then he saw me. We both froze. He walked over slowly. Hey. You look good. Thanks." There was a long pause. Then he looked down and said, "Your mom's worried sick." "I know. She thinks this will break the family." I took a breath. It already did. I just stopped pretending it hadn't. He looked tired, older than I remembered. "I don't know how to fix this." "You can't," I said, "because you didn't break it." He looked up, surprised. I continued, "But you did stand there while someone else did." He didn't have an answer for that, and I didn't need one. I walked away with a basket full of groceries and a heart that felt lighter. I hadn't fixed everything. Jake still owed me. The family still buzzed with gossip, but I'd done what no one expected. I stood up, and I didn't back down. Time doesn't heal everything, but it reveals everything. 3 months after the ruling, Jake had made 2 partial payments. Sloppy, passive-aggressive checks with memo lines, like "Hope you're happy," and "Was it worth it?" I cashed everyone. Not because I needed his money to survive, but because I wanted every cent to scream, "You don't get to erase what you did." Each deposit wasn't just restitution, it was a receipt for every time I'd swallowed my pride in silence. The funny thing about drawing boundaries is how people react like you're building walls, like you're shutting them out. But I wasn't shutting anyone out. I was finally choosing who to let in. Jake wasn't on that list anymore. Neither was Aunt Mel, who texted me last week to say I owe the family an apology for the drama I caused. I didn't respond. I just blocked her. I don't argue with people who confuse exposure with betrayal. I was never the one who broke the rules. I was just the first one to enforce them. Credit score? Climbing. I paid off a chunk of my own debt, opened a secured card, and even got a pre-approval for a new apartment. One with hardwood floors, thick walls, and a lease that didn't hinge on someone else's irresponsibility. The day I signed the lease, I cried, not because I was sad, but because I could. The day I moved in, Jake posted a picture on his story, standing on a rooftop bar, holding a glass of something expensive, tagged at "somewhere you can't afford." His caption? "Still winning." I laughed. Actually laughed, because I finally understood. People like Jake aren't afraid of court. They're afraid of consequences, of accountability, of someone pulling off the mask they wear for the world and saying, "Here, this is who you really are." And that's what I'd done. I didn't drag him into court because I wanted revenge. I did it because I needed to stop being the one who always paid for his mistakes. For years he played the golden boy, the charmer, the guy who could laugh off debt and duck every deadline. But underneath the charm was a pattern, and beneath that pattern was a parasite, one that fed off the people too ashamed or too loyal to say no. Not anymore. The final payment came 6 months after the ruling. It arrived in an envelope with no return address. Just a check. No memo line. No apology. No words. And that said everything. Stood in my kitchen holding that check, staring out the window at the city below. The skyline looked different now. Not bigger, not smaller, just real. A few days later, I ran into Nina again at a coffee shop. She asked how I was doing. I told her the truth. Better. Not perfect, but better. She nodded. "You know, he's telling everyone you did it for attention." I smiled. "That's okay. Let him tell the story. I have the receipt." Nina laughed. "I hope I grow a backbone like yours." You already have it, I said. You just have to stop hiding it for other people's comfort. That night I got a message from my mom. Just one line. I still love you, even if I don't understand. It hurt, but not in the old way. It didn't feel like guilt. It felt like grief. Grief for the family I thought I had. For the parents I wanted to stand beside me instead of behind him. For the version of me that kept hoping they would. But here's the thing about grief. It clears the space that guilt used to take up. And in that space, something stronger grows. 1 week later, I saw a car ad online. Sleek, black, same make, and model Jake drove into the ground. For a second, I felt the anger rise. Then I smiled, closed the tab. I didn't need a car to go anywhere. I was already where I was supposed to be. Alone, at peace, whole. And the next time someone says, "Your family," I'll smile and nod. Because now I know being family doesn't mean you owe someone silence. It means you tell them the truth, even when it burns. And when they steal from you, you don't argue. You hand them the summons and say, "Cool, then this is just business."